Hey everybody, Jake Breen here, Team Utah Cribs at Berkshire Hathaway Utah Properties. I'm going to be answering a user-submitted question today. This is perhaps one of the top 3 questions that I've received in my career, and same with the team. We constantly get questions about foreclosures. These questions have been diminished a bit over the last 6 years as the market's been extremely hot, but they're resurging, and perhaps the main reason they resurge is because consumers are constantly on consumer-facing home shopping websites. Perhaps the most popular is Zillow and Trulia, and they are finding what they believe to be foreclosure properties. Let me give you an example of what I mean and show you a search here, and then I will dive into explaining to you why you are being duped as a consumer by these websites. So here we are. I'm going to share my screen with you. If you land on Zillow, let's look in Salt Lake City. You will see that Zillow is reporting 455 properties for sale, if you follow my cursor, in Salt Lake City right now. Have you ever noticed that if you click on the down arrow under the for sale types, you have some options? Are you looking at properties for sale by owner, new construction, by agent, foreclosure properties, pre-foreclosures? And there's definitions next to these. Well, consumers don't really care. They usually just say, show me the properties. But let's remove all these other types and just look at foreclosures and pre-foreclosures. Of the 455, Zillow is saying there's 95 homes in Salt Lake right now that are available as foreclosed properties. Yikes. This is what you've got to follow and understand here. Zillow is displaying home for sale information, and they are gathering those homes and that information a few different ways. Number one, they purchase what's called IDX feeds to the over 600 MLS systems throughout the United States. It's very costly for them. A lot of times they buy the cheapest feed, which is why the website's always out of date and not displaying accurate list price. Properties are still showing for sale on Zillow that have already sold. And this happens to us as realtors on a weekly, if not daily basis. Consumers send us hyperlinks from Zillow. We're telling them the information's wrong. But to these foreclosures, could you go buy one of these 95 properties as a consumer today? No, you can't. You couldn't, even if you wanted to. And let me explain why. And that's what this video is going over. Back to Zillow. The other way they're displaying properties for sale is back in the 80s, 90s, pre-internet, if a property was getting foreclosed on, meaning a borrower missed a mortgage payment, the foreclosing entity legally has to advertise that the consumer is in default. This has been commonly known as the notice of default list. And for years, you could get this list for free in the newspaper or email a title company. Well, nowadays, you can get it just online for free by Googling it, and I will show you. But suffice to say, Zillow is taking that list that they get and update on a daily or weekly basis, and they're displaying on their website as if all of those properties are foreclosed on or about to get foreclosed on or for sale. And I'll explain to you the real percentages and the likelihood of those properties being for sale. Let me show you a quick Google search so you can see the notice of default list. So all I did is go into Google and type notice of default list Utah. I clicked on the very first title company that came up. I clicked Salt Lake, I clicked PDF, and voila, that fast, I have 4 pages of everybody who was filed as having missed a mortgage payment yesterday. 12 people in Salt Lake City. Quick, easy, addresses, name, how much amount they're in default. Well, that's great information, and we all know we can spend decades on the internet looking at information these days. Where does the rubber meet the road? Here's where the rubber meets the road. What is the likelihood of any of these notice of defaults, again, consumers who are still in their homes that are not for sale and they've just missed a mortgage payment? Statistically, how many of them end up as foreclosed properties? Well, let me show you some data from RealtyTrack, which is perhaps now the most trusted data analysis on foreclosures and bank-owned properties. And as you can see, in Salt Lake City, right now, 0.02% of properties who file an NOD end up as actual foreclosures. Nationally, it's 0.04%. So follow me on this. Number one, when you miss a mortgage payment and it becomes public knowledge and Zillow displays your house as being a pre-foreclosure, it's extremely statistically unlikely that you get foreclosed on. In my market right now, 0.02% chance. Now, in that rare diamond in the rough 0.02% chance, what's the likelihood that that property gets foreclosed on by the foreclosing entity, and that that bank or lender then puts the property back up for sale as a bank repo so that you as a consumer can go buy it? In this market, slim to none, never happens, hasn't happened for us in over 6 years, not one time, okay? Let me show you why. I'm gonna share with you one last screen, so bear with me here. I'm now sharing with you the MLS. So I am in the Realtor MLS system for Salt Lake Board Realtors, and I put show me all active properties for sale. There are currently 6,124 residential pieces of real estate for sale in our MLS system as of this exact moment, and this is in real time. If I say show me all bank-owned properties, there is a grand total of 10. You're seeing them on my screen. At quick glance, it looks like only one of them is even in Salt Lake County. All the rest are outside of the county. Again, rare, rare, rare. And if a property actually shows up as a bank-owned property for sale listed on the MLS, usually there's multiple offers. They're not necessarily a good deal just because they're bank-owned. But what's more likely is if a person goes all the way into default, misses multiple payments, and the foreclosing entity actually follows the judicial process they're required to follow, then the property is put up for auction at the foreclosure steps in the county in which it's being foreclosed. This is commonplace. I've been to many of them in my career, and there is good or bad market. There are always many investors that show up to try to purchase that property cash. So the only way foreclosures actually show up for sale through a realtor is when none of that works out and the foreclosing entity has to resell the property on the open market, which in this day and age is so rare, it's more than a needle in the haystack. Quick note, yes, I find it extremely frustrating, and I think it's bad business practice that consumer-facing websites dupe consumers into thinking they can find a diamond in the rough. I've had consumers take it as far as to not believe me and take these addresses and go door knock people that Zillow is displaying as a pre-foreclosure. And in my 20-year career, I've never had that work out for anybody. Nobody's picked up a deal that I know of, number one. Number two, there's been some scary situations with guns put in people's faces because you're trespassing on property. And believe me, people who miss a mortgage payment, they're already being heavily solicited. The last thing they want you to do as a consumer is to door knock them and try to buy their property and steal it from them. So I think it's a bad business practice. It's unfortunate that consumer-facing websites do this, but why do they? The only way these websites generate revenue is to have you shop on them, and then you fall brazen to a call to action, which means you give them your information, and then they sell you as a lead to realtors that don't do business like we do. We do business 100% referral based. They try to solicit you to get your business that way, and we choose to go about it a different route. So that's why we here at Utah Cribs give you educated information so that you can make an educated decision when it comes to your real estate. Thanks for tuning in.